Instead, it carves out an important niche for itself as a practical, cost-effective alternative. In some ways, this approach reminds me a bit of the early days of personal computing. Back then, you had massive mainframes dominating the industry, and then along came these scrappy little PCs that couldn't quite do everything but were good enough for a lot of the work. Fast forward a few decades, and the PC revolutionized computing. DeepSeek might not be GPT-5, but it could pave the way for a more democratized AI landscape where advanced tools aren't confined to a handful of tech giants. The implications here are huge. Imagine AI models tailored to specific industries, running on local hardware for privacy and control, or even embedded in devices like smartphones and smart home hubs. The idea of having your own personal AI assistant, one that doesn't rely on a massive cloud backend, suddenly feels a lot more attainable. Of course, the road ahead isn't without its challenges. DeepSeek and models like it must prove that they can handle real-world tasks reliably, scale effectively, and continue to innovate in a space dominated, so far, by much larger competitors. But if there's one thing we've learned from the history of technology, it's that innovation doesn't always come from the biggest players. Sometimes all it takes is a fresh perspective and a willingness, or sometimes a necessity, to do things differently. DeepSeek R1 signals that China is not just a participant in the global AI race, but a formidable competitor capable of producing cutting-edge open-source models. For American AI companies like OpenAI, Google, DeepMind, and Anthropic, this creates a dual challenge: maintaining technological leadership and justifying the price premium in the face of increasingly capable, cost-effective alternatives. So what are the implications for American AI? Well, open-source models like DeepSeek R1 allow developers worldwide to innovate at lower cost. This could undermine the competitive advantage of proprietary models, particularly in areas like research and small to medium enterprise adoption. U.S. companies that rely heavily on subscription or API-based revenue could feel the squeeze, potentially dampening investor enthusiasm. The release of DeepSeek R1 as open-source software also democratizes access to powerful AI capabilities. Companies and governments around the world can build upon its foundation without the licensing fears or the restrictions imposed by U.S. firms. This could accelerate AI adoption globally but reduce demand for U.S.-developed models, impacting revenue streams for firms like OpenAI and Google Cloud. In the stock market, companies heavily reliant on AI licensing, cloud infrastructure, NVIDIA's chips, or API integrations could face downward pressure as investors factor in lower projected growth or increased competition. Now, in the intro, I made a little side reference to the potential of a PSYOP angle, and while I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist myself, some have argued that perhaps we should not take the Chinese at their word when it comes to how the model was produced. If it really was produced on second-tier hardware for just a few $1 million, it's major. But some argue that perhaps China invested heavily at the state level to assist, hoping to upset the status quo in America by making what is supposed to be very hard look supposedly cheap and easy. But only time will tell. So that's DeepSeek R1 in a nutshell. A scrappy little AI punching above its weight, built using clever techniques and designed to make advanced AI accessible to more people than ever before. It's not perfect, it's not trying to be, but it's a fascinating glimpse into what the future of AI might look like.